In the last episode, we explained Stagger and talked about its nuances. In this episode, we're going to talk about how you manage Stagger through Purifying Brew and additional methods. Alongside that, we're also going to discuss different forms of basic mitigation in the forms of both brews and direct healing. Let's dive in. While Stagger is our first line of defense, without managing it, you will still take all of the damage over the duration of the dot. Luckily, this is where Purifying Brew comes in handy. This is a low cooldown ability that will remove 50% of your current amount of stagger damage. So if your current stagger is 1 million over 10-second duration, when you use Purifying Brew, it's going to be cut down to 500,000. This ability is imperative to keeping your damage taken as low as possible. A common misconception is that you should not cast Purifying Brew until you have deep or red stagger. This isn't quite true. You'll want to cast this ability often to build stacks of Purified Chi and to benefit from additional effects like additional dodge chance through Pretense of Instability and healing through Plin's Imperial Brew. Another major component of the Brewmaster's kit is that they are constantly getting cooldown reduction on all of their brews whenever they cast Keg Smash. It's important to purify often since the cooldown will be reduced significantly while doing your damage rotation. The second part of Purifying Brew is based on your level of stagger. In this case, I'm referring to the type either green, yellow, or red, or light, moderate, or heavy. Depending on these levels, you'll either gain 1, 2, or 3 stacks of something called Purified Chi. This buff in the form of stacks will greatly empower your next Celestial Brew or Celestial Infusion by 35% per stack, which is capped at 6. This means that this absorb can be up to 210% stronger. What's unique about these stacks is that their accumulation rate will change based on the difficulty of content you're doing. When you're getting your feet wet with LFR content or low mythic dungeons, often you'll find it difficult to reach 6 stacks quickly. Unlike other forms of tank mitigation like Shield Block or Iron Fur, Brewmaster's ability to heal and deal damage will scale on the content they're doing. Celestial Brew has always been a staple of the class for a long period of time. This is an absorb which is increased by each stack of Purified Chi, and this buff lasts for 8 seconds. More often than not during combat, this duration doesn't really matter at all because it's going to get eaten up pretty quickly by all the incoming damage sources. It's meant to act as a short damage stop to buy time for you or your healer to top your health pool or to mitigate a large tank buster from a raid or dungeon boss. There isn't much to discuss here. As you take damage, you'll purify a portion of that damage to gain stacks of Purified Chi, and once you purify a few times, then you'll cast Celestial Brew. This creates a nice ebb and flow, which has the Brewmaster slowly getting low on health, then using a large absorb to blanket themselves to stop incoming damage. In patch 11.2, Blizzard has made the Celestial Brew talent a choice node with a new talent called Celestial Infusion. There are 2 major differences with this talent. First, the duration of the shield has been increased from 8 to 16 seconds. This is important because the major change is that this brew will not prevent all incoming damage. Instead, it's a 30% damage absorb. So instead of mitigating 100% of the damage until the absorb is destroyed, it's only going to prevent 30% of the damage coming through until the absorb is either destroyed or it expires. At the time of recording this video, it has yet to be determined which 2 of these talents will be better, but I do believe Celestial Brew will be better for new Brewmaster players or those who are finding themselves in easier content based on their item level. Celestial Infusion tends to work better in higher keys when playing with triage-based healers. All in all, both of these shields can be cast early and often to mitigate as much damage as possible. My general rule of thumb is to always keep this brew on cooldown. Then, by the time it's up again, you should have accumulated a generous amount of Purified Chi stacks to bolster the next shield. While our Purifying and Celestial Brew, or I guess Infusion in this case, is the main way we're going to mitigate damage, there are a few additional talents and abilities that can reduce the amount of stagger we currently have. In the first tier of our talent tree, there are actually 2 talents, including both Staggering Strikes and Quick Sip that will reduce our stagger. Quick Sip is more often a popular choice, and this talent will reduce your total stagger by 5% every time you gain 3 seconds of shuffle. This happens whenever you cast Keg Smash, Blackout Kick, or Spinning Crane Kick. Staggering Strikes tends to be much weaker, but will reduce your stagger by a flat amount based on your attack power whenever you cast Blackout Kick or Rising Sun Kick. This talent is rarely ran. If you do play this talent, it'll only ever be in extremely low content or while leveling. Most of the Brewmaster community is hoping that Blizzard either buffs this talent significantly or removes it entirely. Tranquil Spirit is another talent in our class tree that will reduce our stagger whenever we consume a healing sphere or cast Expel Harm. This talent has been quite popular in recent seasons and is quite strong for more difficult content, specifically Mythic Plus. Last but not least, Touch of Death will purify up to 200% of the damage dealt with the ability. While this should be used as often as possible for damage, there's a defensive benefit as well. Beyond reducing stagger, the other main way Brewmasters will counter some damage is through healing. Admittedly, we have never been known as the most self-reliant tank in terms of healing, but I do want to go over where most of our healing is going to be coming from. The biggest source of healing comes through healing spheres, and these are supplied from the talents Gift of the Ox and Spirit of the Ox, which both reside in our first tier of our talent tree. When we take damage through Gift of the Ox or deal damage with Blackout Kick or Rising Sun Kick through Spirit of the Ox, we have a chance to summon a healing sphere nearby. Consuming these spheres will heal the Brewmaster based on an attack power modifier. There are a few ways to consume your healing spheres. First, you can consume them by simply walking through them. Second, Spinning Crane Kick will draw them near you. Neither of these methods are great. The best and most reliable way to consume a healing sphere is through our ability Expel Harm. By casting Expel Harm, this will consume all available healing spheres, giving the Brewmaster a burst of healing. When you have 4 or 5 of these healing spheres available, Expel Harm becomes basically a lay on hands. This will often be one of your highest sources of healing, but not necessarily the Expel Harm, but the healing spheres that are being consumed by hitting Expel Harm. With the introduction of 11.2, there is a new talent called Niuzao's Resolve, which increases the healing these spheres do by up to 80%, but will now heal over time instead of directly. This can be nice in conjunction with Celestial Infusion talent we discussed earlier, but it's also a good way to reduce the amount of overhealing these spheres tend to do. Similarly to Celestial Infusion, I'm not sure the best time to run this talent, but it's probably safe to say that it's a safe choice in most scenarios if you aren't fully comfortable preventing overhealing. I'll be sure to cover the nuanced scenarios in a future video. Next, we have Plin's Imperial Brew, and this is a very popular talent choice. This talent will heal you for 25% of the damage you purify with Purifying Brew. There isn't much thought that needs to go into this, it just makes Purifying Brew that much more enticing to hit. The last major source of healing you're going to be getting is from Celestial Fortune. This is actually a passive of the Brewmaster Monk that's based on our critical strike rating. Any and all healing that hits the Brewmaster player has a chance based on your critical strike rating to replicate at 70% effectiveness. This is both from the Brewmaster themselves and any external healing from your healer or your party members. This is super important because while Brewmaster tends to feel like they need more healing, your healer's healing will be way more effective. This is often why Critical Strike is one of the best stats for the Brewmaster Monk, and one of the coolest ways I have seen this secondary stat benefiting a tank defensively outside of the normal parry chance like we've seen with tanks like Demon Hunter and Protection Warrior. In essence, most of the way that Brewmasters will mitigate damage is through purifying stagger through various sources, with the main way being casting Purifying Brew. You should be aiming to cast it roughly 6 to 8 seconds. Another good rule of thumb is to never sit on 2 charges of Purifying Brew. That way, you can always be benefiting from the cooldown reduction you're getting from Keg Smash and other abilities like Blackout Combo and Facepalm. Celestial Brew and Celestial Infusion should be kept on cooldown to reduce the amount of damage the Brewmaster is taking up front. While it's ideal to send it at 6 stacks of Purified Chi, depending on the amount of damage you're taking, it might be ideal to send it a little bit earlier. While holding the Absorb for a larger tank kit can be beneficial, oftentimes Stagger carries the Brewmaster on that front outside of specific instances. Last but not least, Expel Harm should be used often at low health to consume all of your nearby healing spheres to grant you some on-demand healing. If you are playing Niuzao's Resolve, you can use it more often to maintain a steady heal over time effect instead. Brewmaster is an extremely enjoyable tank and can be quite sturdy if you understand the ins and outs of its mitigation and healing profile. With that being said, the class is incredibly nuanced and practice will make perfect. If you are looking to improve your mitigation and decrease the amount of damage you take, practice these things and in no time you're going to be feeling confident in the class's pacing. And that just about covers it. This was the 3rd video in a 8-part series. We've already covered damage as well as covered stagger. In the next video, we're going to be going over how to use your cooldowns effectively. A massive shout out to all my Patreon supporters who got access to this video early and whose support allows me to make content like this. Best of luck, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.